Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Thursday lunchtime tutorial. Hope everyone is doing well. Lori's apparently been chasing a Turbo around the house trying to get the wire back that he stole. I think I'm going to say that chasing cat, good way to get your cardio in. It's, all about the motivation when it comes to exercising, and he's obviously providing that for you. And I did see your beautiful string of lights earrings on Discord. They look amazing. Anybody who hasn't popped onto the Project Photos channel on Discord, Lori made a really lovely pair of our string of lights earrings from last week with the assistance of Turbo, and she still managed to get them done, and as far as I know, she didn't pierce the ear of the cat in the process. That's pretty amazing as far as I'm concerned. So this afternoon's tutorial is what I was feeling clever, y'all. It doesn't happen very often these days, so I decided to call it Presbyopia in a Pandemic. So what this guy is, which you may have not have been obvious from the name nor the photo, is it is a convertible mask chain and reading glasses chain. So basically what I've got going on here, well, Heather, she's not in yet today. What I've got going on here is I've got my little glasses findings, reading glasses findings, and then I've got them attached to a little lobster claw, and I've done the same thing with a bigger lobster claw. So basically the way that this would work if you wanted to use this as a mask chain, so we're gonna make two sets of these little connectors, one for the mask chain, one for the reading glasses chain, and then they're just interchangeable, which is fun. So if I want to make this a mask chain, then I just clip that onto there and clip that onto my mask, and voila, you've got a mask lanyard, and then switch it out the other way and you've got a chain for your reading glasses. This was a combination of something that's been kicking around in my head and also a request from the stream. It's been kicking around in my head because I recently have started to experience presbyopia. Basically what that means is when your near distance vision goes to crap, when your eyes can't compensate anymore, when you have a prescription. So I either need reading glasses in front of my glasses in order to see things close to me, or I have to take my glasses off. And one of my clients, because I cracked my glasses, may or may not have noticed, but I actually cracked them right there because of putting them up on top of my head stressed the plastic. And so one of my other clients, she has hers on what she calls an old lady glasses chain, so that when she needs to take them off, she can just take them off and they can hang, and then she can put them back on when she needs to actually see things that are at a distance. And of course, mask chains and glasses chains are pretty much the same thing. It's true. Presbyterian in a pandemic is a slightly different topic. It's true. But once this pandemic is over, I think it's going to be nice to have these chains that we can just easily convert back to being eyeglasses chains rather than being mask chains. And at this point, this particular project will allow you to make something that will function in either capacity. So let's talk about what you need, tools and supplies for this afternoon's tutorial. All right, you're going to need beads. A good length for either a mask chain or an eyeglasses chain is about 24 inches. So that means I'm basically going to need a strand and a half of beads. So I'm going to use these pretty fluorite beads that didn't sell in our sale last night. I personally like my glasses chains to be a little bit more delicate. And you could absolutely use the same technique with chain, like just literally a length of chain. You could use it with, wire wrapped, wire linked chain. So there's a lot of different applications for the basic technique that we're going to do. But I'm going to go ahead and string beads. So I'm going to do a strand and a half of my 3mm fluorite beads. What I'm going to string my beads on is going to be stainless steel stringing cable. So this is 49 strands of stainless steel wire that are bundled together and coated in nylon. And this is what they call the pearl silver color, and this is something I find works well when you've got beads like my fluorites that are very, very transparent. It helps you not get a dark line through the beads where your stringing cable is. And I'm using the 0.014 diameter. That's a good size for smaller beads, like what I'm using. As far as findings go, I have a bit of a smorgasbord out here. I'm going to need two of my eyeglass findings. I'm going to need 4 small lobster claws, 2 crimp tubes. These are 2mm by 2mm crimp tubes, 2 large lobster claws. So these are the attachments that make this a convertible project. These are the ones that are actually going to attach to your mask. 2 soldered rings and 4 jump rings. My soldered rings that I'm using are 6mm silver plated soldered rings, and these are 4mm silver plated jump rings. As far as tools go, you are going to need a slight variation on your basics. You're going to need a chain nose pliers, and then ideally a second chain nose pliers. And then you're going to need a wire cutter. Round nose pliers you're really not going to need for this project. I like to have mine on hand just in case, but in this particular project that we are doing today, the round nose are really not necessary. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut myself some of the stringing cable. Rosemary, did you get your question answered? Was that the diameter of the jump rings, or was it something else you were asking the diameter of? So I'm going to take my stringing cable, and since I want 24 inches of beads, I'm going to cut myself more than 24 inches of stringing cable. I'm going to cut myself 30 inches of stringing cable. That should give me plenty to do my finishing and all that. And again, this is 0.014 stringing cable. Got it. I'm using the 0.014, which is the diameter that we typically call fine, because I'm using these small 3mm faceted beads. Now you always want to match as best you can your stringing cable diameter to the size of your bead. So if you're bumping up and you're doing a chunkier mask chain / glasses chain, if you're using 8mm beads or 10mm beads, then you definitely want to go up to a larger stringing cable, like a 0.018 or even a 0.024, just depending on the amount of chunk you have on your beads. But for my little 3mm faceteds, my 0.014 cable is going to work great. So I'm going to start by crimping my cable onto my soldered rings. So the way that this project works is essentially the soldered ring is the end and the beginning. So this is my soldered ring. So everything from this small lobster claw onward is completely removable. So this is actually the thing that we are making now. Incidentally, if you wanted to turn this into a necklace with your 2 soldered rings, all you would need is an S hook to do that. So it's actually a triple function project, not just a double function project. So that's exciting. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crimp my cable onto my soldered ring. Now, you don't necessarily have to start with that. If you're doing a more complicated pattern and you wanted to, say, lay it out, then you could start with a bead stopper or a piece of tape on the end of your stringing cable, and you could go ahead and just string your pattern on there, and that way, if you wanted to make any changes, it would be a little easier. You wouldn't have to waste a crimp bead. Since I'm just being very, very simple today, and I'm just going to straight string these beads off of their strands. Oh, hey, look, you're not the same size. That's exciting. Since I'm just going to straight string these beads off their strands, I'm going to go ahead and start by crimping my soldered ring onto my cable. That way it just acts as a stopper all on its own. So that means I'm going to grab one of my 2x2 crimp tubes. So again, these are sterling silver crimp tubes. Nothing else I'm using today is sterling, but I always splurge on the sterling silver crimp tubes because they really are way better quality than any of your base metal or silver plated, gold plated crimp tubes. Like, just go for the sterling silver or gold filled. Yes, I realize they cost more, but they don't cost that much in the grand scheme of things, and they make such a gigantic difference in the durability of your project over time. Like, as somebody who's fixed a massive amount of jewelry in my career, I'm telling you, crimp beads are important. Crimp beads and cable, way more important than clasps and other things, honestly, as far as the durability of your piece. Like these are the bones, this is the skeleton and the connective tissues, for lack of a better, sorry, did not mean to get all, weirdly gory with that reference, but super important. Good stringing cable, good crimp beads, I promise you won't regret it. I'm going to take my stringing cable and I'm going to string onto my stringing cable my no, that was last night, Tallyfet. My goal is not to yeet anything during this tutorial. Though with me, you never know. Though to be fair, Heather's not there, so I have got, if I'm just yeeting random things, like I don't have a target, makes it more boring. Alright, so I'm going to put my crimp bead onto my stringing cable, and then I'm going to grab one of those soldered rings, and I'm going to drop that on there, and then I'm going to take my end, flip it back around, back down through my crimp bead, so now I have a loop upon which my little soldered ring is dangling. Also, I'm glad your BF got home safe, Tallyfet, with all the crazy flight cancellations and everything. We missed you last night, but I'm glad you got to catch the replay and the glory of all that was Heather and I in our delirium last night. God, y'all are so tired. Still super fun sale. It's always a super fun sale, but I was definitely on my last legs last night. I'm a little bit more well rested today for sure. Okay, so what I want to do after I've strung that up my crimp bead through my soldered ring down my crimp bead is I want to do two things. First of all, I want to make that loop smaller so that it's not so giant and unsightly. Second of all, I want to make sure my cords are coming out my crimp bead parallel, and hopefully you can see that in my camera. I don't want them to be crossing over. That's just going to make it a little bit more secure. Now, if this is something that's giving you fits, forget I said anything. It's not that important. This is one of those kind of finer construction points that if you're ready for it, awesome. And if you're not, again, forget I said anything. Now you're going to take your chain nose pliers and you're just going to go ahead and smash that crimp bead flat, flat, flat. Okay, so I just have that whole crimp bead smashed flat in my pliers. And now what I have is my tube has turned into a little square. I'm going to give it a tug test, just make sure that nothing's moving, which it isn't. And then I'm going to cut off this little end here. And this is something that a lot of stringers differ from me, in my opinion of. Some people like to take that little piece that I just cut off and really, camera, all of a sudden you just decided that it was going to be that bright. I don't think that's really? Oh, technology. Well, anyway, it may or may not fix itself when I switch cameras, otherwise I'll have to go in there and say, hey, this does not need to be the desert at high noon. But anyway, a lot of people like to tuck that, and I just cut off into the beads. The problem with that I have experienced repeatedly in my career of both making and repairing jewelry is that your cable will stretch a little bit over time. Like, no matter what, your cable's just going to stretch as your necklace, bracelet, whatever is worn. And what's going to happen when your cable stretches is your beads are going to start to move back and forth ever so slightly on that cable. If you take that little end and you thread it back into your beads, eventually it's going to work itself out. It's going to stab you in the neck. Question from the stream was, do I crimp from the one side or from both, or does it matter? I crimp from one side only. You can crimp from both sides, but if you're crimping from both sides, you want to make sure that you're crimping in the same direction, meaning that you have your tube and you flatten it into, that's terrible. You have your tube, we're going to try that interpretive dance again. You have your tube and you flatten it into a pancake. So that's going to be from pressure from this side and this side. Bam, pancake. If you're going to flip this over, you want to make sure you're applying pressure from the same sides. If you only flip it 90 degrees, then you're going to unpancake your crimp, and that is exactly what you don't want. So I find, especially when I'm teaching people how to do this for the first time, that just saying crimp from one side is conceptually so much easier. But regardless of how I did it, I have actually successfully crimped this I really have no idea why all of a sudden it was just like, I'm going to be the brightest thing ever. But I've crimped this soldered ring onto my stringing cable. Now I'm going to go ahead and just string 24 inches of beads onto this stringing cable. So once again, I'm just using 2 strands of fluorite that didn't sell in last night's sale, so there's really no design that I have to worry about in my project today. But if you want to do something that has a more defined design, go for it. Lay it out on a bead board, you know, do as much trial and error as you need to. Like, there's no right or wrong. Hi, Sophia! There's no right or wrong as far as this goes. It's pretty much just whatever you want. The main things when you've got something like a mask chain or a glasses chain, I feel like, is it just needs to be comfortable to wear, is all. Like, it's, you know, as long as it's comfortable to wear, everything else is secondary. So again, I'm stringing 24 inches of beads onto this cable, which is going to take me a minute. So let's see, let's talk about what's going on the Beading Dreams stream tonight. Tonight we do have a tutorial. It's not a, that's the wrong one. It's not August 14th. It's not a torch tutorial. It's actually a bugle bead and wire wrapping tutorial tonight on the Beading Dreams stream. Those are polygon earrings, so that should hopefully be a fun tutorial. As somebody who loves kind of geometric things, I'm very much looking forward to that tutorial. And then we are going to be, tomorrow evening, New Year's Eve, will be hosting a Zoom crafty cocktail time from 6 to 8, which would be our typically, I think that would have been a regularly scheduled activity for Friday night of this upcoming week. And that's going to be fun. Heather and I are actually going to be doing that from our homes. We are closing here at Beading Dreams on Lovers Lane at 4 p.m. tomorrow, and we'll both be heading home to Zoom from our homes. And we definitely are encouraging pajamas on the New Year's Eve Zoom, plus of course the beverage of your choice. That's just going to be a little bit of fun time to bring in the new year together, and then we'll be back with a regular streaming schedule the first week of January. We're going to be bringing back some oldies but goodies. I know that there are a number of you who are new-ish stream viewers, meaning you haven't been with us since the very, very beginning of the pandemic, so I'm going to go back to some of those early pandemic classes. Also, when my production values weren't so good, when there were a lot of cat buttholes that featured themselves, and don't forget also cats crashing the stream and things crashing generally everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and start sort of recycling and redoing some of my earlier tutorials. So that is what we're going to be doing in January, is you know, reimagining some of our oldies tutorials. So that should hopefully be a pretty good time. But we will resume our regular streaming schedule the first week of January, so it's going to be Wednesday through Saturday at 6 p.m., Thursdays at noon, and live merchandise sales every Wednesday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. until I fly to Tucson for a shopping trip. Knock on wood that that's still going to happen, and that's going to be on January 31st, so we should be back on our regular streaming schedule until then. So hopefully I'll see some of y'all on the New Year's Eve Zoom tomorrow night. Should be a good time. There may be a kitty butthole if anybody's been missing that. Since I'm doing it from home, Ziggy will be there, and we all know that he really does like to show his butt to the internet, because apparently he is under some weird impression that people like that. And then New Year's Day we're off. Also, I'm throwing beads on the floor. I'm not really yeeting them though, I'm just dropping them. So again, stringing 24 inches of beads. This is the part of the project that is the most time consuming. It's not really complicated in any way. Seriously, just putting beads onto my cable. So, Sophia, how's the weather in northern Wisconsin? I feel like it has to be pretty gross. I think Lori's weather's still grosser, but I'm curious to know what the northern Wisconsin is doing at this point. God, Saturday here in Dallas is supposed to be very bizarre weather. The high is going to be 71 and the low is going to be 23. So yeah, winter is just going to, you know, come visit us hardcore on Saturday, apparently. Happy New Year! With a 62% possibility of precipitation. Yay! Which only really sucks here in Dallas because there's really no infrastructure in place for snow cleanup and ice cleanup, because it's not a huge thing. It doesn't happen a lot here, and so, you know, that means basically if it snows or ices, there's no, you know, the main roads and the freeways will get cleared, but God help me, no one's going to come with a snowplow down my cul-de-sac and, you know, plow the snow or, you know, salt or put, you know, ice stuff down on the road. So you basically just wait for it to thaw, which it will in like 2 days, but we shall see how Saturday night goes. It's minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit where Lori is. Yep. And that's why I don't live in Canada. That's why I don't live in Wisconsin. That's why I live in Texas, because we're going to get down to 23, and that's going to be like the apocalypse, and then 2 days later it's going to be 60 degrees. Wow, too cold for road maintenance. I didn't even know that was a thing. Alright, Rosemary wins. It's 86 degrees in Florida. Rosemary, will you be spending New Year's Eve by the pool? Because I think that's what I would be doing if it was 86 degrees and I had a pool to sit by. Zoom from the pool could be quite fun. Oof. Yeah, I do not envy anybody dealing with cold weather and its consequences as far as infrastructure goes, because just no thank you. I will pass on all of the Rosemary's spending New Year's Eve at the beach. I am so jelly. Sounds like a delightful way to spend New Year's Eve. Alright, let's see. Okay, halfway there, about 12 inches. Okay, so I'm just continuing to string. Again, my goal is 24 inches, and I did pick fairly small beads, which is why it's taking me a minute. But 24 inches is a good size for something like a glasses chain or a mask lanyard. You could, once again, you could do this with any type of construction. So you could do this with just a straight piece of chain. You could do this making a wire wrapped chain. You could knot this if you were so inclined. You could macrame, you could braid it, you could boho knot it. Like, there's so many options for ways that you could do this. But just finishing it off with the 2 soldered rings gives it the facility to, you know, transform into several different things. Again, it can be a mask lanyard, it can be a glasses chain, or if you're so inclined, you could grab an S-hook and turn it into a necklace as well. So I like versatile pieces in my wardrobe personally. So continuing to string. taking me a little longer because I accidentally picked 2 sizes of fluorite beads instead of 1, so I'm having to sort of intersperse them in. Let's see, so anyone else doing anything exciting for New Year's Eve? I am, aside from hopefully joining us on our Zoom tomorrow night. I'm going to admit that I'm probably not going to be super, I'm definitely opting for pajamas on the Zoom tomorrow night because that's officially the official end of the holiday season. And I'm going to celebrate it by being in my pajamas. Very excited. And excited to see all of you. Fireplace channel sounds awesome, Lori. I love the fireplace channel. Especially in Texas, I love the fireplace channel because it, you know, doesn't make actual heat, which is nice. Okay, definitely getting there. So your strands are typically anywhere from 14 to 15 inches. So again, your 24 inches is going to take about a strand and a half, very approximately. Awesome. So Target put out their own version of Monopoly, which I did buy because I'm a sucker. Haven't played it yet though. I meant to take it to my last book club meeting and I forgot. But at some point I have Target Monopoly that needs to get played. Oh wow! Sophia's in Maine and it's 40 degrees. That's, I mean, for a Wisconsin girl, that's pretty balmy for the end of December. That's awesome. Do you have beach too there in Maine? So close. Sweater weather. Depends on who you talk to in Wisconsin. Some people say that's shorts and flip-flops weather. I grant you they're a little weird, but people see. There goes Lori. Not looking forward to it. I figure at least, my pipes didn't burst during this snowpocalypse, so they're probably going to be fine during this, very brief freeze. But I have to pull all my plants in again. My dining room is going to look like a jungle. Which sounds better than it is. It's not very convenient because I don't have a massive amount of extra space. So I'm just like bobbing and weaving around plants for a couple of days. Texas problems. Helps if you pull the beads off the thing. Oof. Yeah, I remember that. I remember the, like, it's always the debate, like, do you want to bundle up? Do you just want to tough it out? Usually the latter was my choice. I would say at least 50% of the time I regretted it. Okay, so I'm coming down to the home stretch of my 24 inches of stringing, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to crimp that second soldered ring onto our cable. Speaking of presbyopia, having trouble seeing the beads to string them. And yes, I am going to the eye doctor on Tuesday of next week to, you know, hopefully get some kind of corrective lens solution for the fact that my eyes have betrayed me and gotten old without my permission. Nobody said they could do that. Okay, so I'm going to put on these last 3 beads, and then we're going to call that done with our stringing. And now we're going to crimp on our second soldered ring. Alright, so there's my glasses chain. So 24 inches is a good, you know, kind of length because it's not so far down that it's going to smash into everything. It's kind of pretty convenient length for putting on and taking off, both for glasses and for masks. So now we're going to go ahead, and this is how much I had left, by the way. I did absolutely drop a few on the floor, but I've got about 4 inches or so of my second strand left over from this project. So now we're going to take my second crimp bead, crimp tube. That's just my sterling silver crimp tube, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that onto my cable like so, and grab my other soldered ring, put that through my soldered ring, and go back down through my cable like so, and then grab my ring and just pull on this cable and see how everything just kind of tightens up. So what we want is we want this still to be nice and fluid. We don't want it to, you know, be stiff, but we also don't want to see any extra stringing cable. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my cables are parallel to each other, and I'm going to crimp this flat. And again, what I was saying earlier, if you want to crimp it on both sides, make sure you flip it a full 180 degrees and then crimp it again. And then you can cut this off. Okay, so that's the main body of your project. So this is the thing that, you know, is the decorative bit. So now let's grab our 2 pairs of chain nose pliers and all of these other bits and pieces. So that's going to be our 4mm jump rings, our glasses holders, and our large lobster claws, our small lobster claws. I'm going to grab one of my small 4mm jump rings, and I'm going to hold that in my 2 pairs of chain nose pliers, and I'm going to twist it open like so. So what I've done is I've preserved the circle of that jump ring, but I've made an opening there. And on this one, I'm going to take my glasses finding. And my dominant hand. Okay, so take 2. I'm going to take my glasses finding, drop it onto that jump ring, and then one of my small lobster claws. Not that one, because that one is not functional. Drop my small lobster claw on there, so I've got both of those things attached to that same jump ring, and then I'm going to grab back my second pair of chain nose pliers, and I'm just going to grab that ring, and I'm going to close it up. You want to make sure you close it so that you can't see any light in that joint. So that's glasses finding number 1. I'm going to do the same thing for my second one. So again, take a 4mm jump ring, Take your 2 pairs of chain nose, open that up, grab your glasses finding, and these are just the little rubbery ones. I find that those work just as well as any others. They do have a shelf life eventually, the rubber. So glasses finding on, lobster claw on. Now I'm going to close that ring. Eventually the rubber is going to die on these little guys. That's the other cool thing about having them on the lobster claw as opposed to having them be a permanent, so I just closed that up, permanent part of your construction, your actual like beaded construction, is when they die, it's really easy to replace them. Then I'm going to essentially do the same thing for my mask lanyard with my large and small lobster claw. So I'm going to take my jump ring, again I'm going to open that up, and then I'm going to take 1 large lobster, 1 small lobster, so I've got those on there together. And close it back nice and tight so that's what we've got. And then I'm just going to make a second one of those. So open that up. Lobster claw 1, lobster claw 2, close, and there we go. So this is the mask lanyard finding. This is the eyeglasses chain finding. So if we want to use this thing we just made as a mask lanyard, I'm going to take the piece that we just made with the soldered ring here. We're going to take the small lobster, we're going to clip that onto the soldered ring, and then that larger lobster is what's going to clip around our mask. If we want to make it an eyeglasses, then we take the one with the eyeglasses, clip that on there, and then this part of course attaches onto the bow of your glasses like so. And if you wanted to make it a necklace, then you take these 2 soldered rings and you just use a finding called an S hook, which I'm sure everyone out there is familiar with. It's just a clasp but looks like an S, and you're just going to thread it through both of those, and that's going to hold it on your neck as a necklace. So thank you all so much for joining us for our Thursday noon tutorial Presbyopia in a Pandemic. Glasses chain, mask lanyard, or a necklace. You decide, but either way it's a fun and easy basic stringing project. So I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. We are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store, and we're here on Lovers Lane in Dallas. We are here to feed your need to bead, typically 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, from 1 to 6. Today, the 30th of December, we are here from 1 to 6. Tomorrow, we are going to, thanks Lori, we're going to be closing at 4, and then we'll be on Zoom at 6 p.m. with our New Year's Eve crafty cocktail time. But of course you can catch us before that on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, this evening at 6 p.m. with our polygon earrings. So that's going to be a bugle bead and basic wire wrapping project. So we'll see y'all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream this evening at 6. Bye y'all!